Good evening, everyone. My name is Francois Martelet, so I'm the CEO of NetScientific. Perhaps a few words about my background. I'm a medical doctor by background, together with an MBA. I spent about 16 years in big organizations such as Novartis and Merck in the US as well. Then I moved to very small companies, startup companies, and I've been CEO twice, once in the US and once in Denmark, and this is my third CEO role in the UK. All right, so NetScientific is an intellectual property commercialization company. That means a technology commercialization and investment business focused on healthcare. So you're going to hear a lot about healthcare tonight. So we are building companies by investing in early stage, game-changing technologies with a large commercial potential. And as you could see from this slide, most of our portfolio is basically in the US. And we have, out of 20 companies we had early on, we have selected the one which most commercial potential. That means about 5 companies, as you could see here, that we call our core portfolio. And we approach them from 3 angles: the digital health, therapeutics, and diagnostics angle, as you could see from the slide here. And we are very fortunate to have major investors in the UK supporting us, such as Neil Woodford for about 45%, Invesco Perpetual, and Geo Hambro, to name our main investors. All right, so here on this slide, you see the board and the management team, which is fairly lean and mean organization. And I'm not sure there is a need to present Sir Richard Sykes, who is our chairman, former CEO and chairman of Glaxo Wellcome, currently still chairman of the Imperial College Trust, and also chairman of the Royal Institute. In Postlethwaite, our CFO from Allergy Therapeutics, and Barry Wilson, former head of Bristol Myers Squibb Europe, and also Medtronic International, and Professor Stephen Smith, former CEO of the Imperial College Trust. So the important piece of this slide is to tell you that basically we have all developed and commercialized fairly successfully drugs on a global scale. I was part myself of teams which have put on the market quite successfully 12 drugs. 6 of them are actually blockbusters worldwide, which means with sales above the $1 billion. So on this slide, you see what we have done over the past 2.5 years since I was appointed CEO. The main thing was to refocus the portfolio on healthcare only. So we have divested a number of companies, stopped investing in a few, and restructure in order to really focus on healthcare. And why? Because that was our level of competency. And then we have decided to appoint fairly heavyweight CEOs to run those companies, because we believe that those businesses are to be run locally. Most of them are actually in the US. And then we wanted to have a first exit, which is very important because it does validate the business model. So we had an exit earlier this year, 3 times cash return in a downstream application in artificial intelligence. I will come back a little bit later on into this. So ultimately, we are now at a stage where our portfolio is about to be commercialized or has already entered into the first stage of the commercialization, which is, we believe, a good achievement compared to close to 3 years ago. Right, now let's move a little bit into the portfolio. So I will go a little bit into depth now. So this is Vortex Biosciences, a company based in San Francisco. And this is a company, it's a diagnostic company. And we all know that when we talk about cancer management, the difficulty for patients is that they have to go through multiple tissue biopsies. With Vortex Biosciences, we are able to detect, isolate, at an early stage, cancer circulating cells, which means that the cells that are shed into the bloodstream, the cancer circulating cells that are propelled here, and basically they also often constitute a secondary tumor. So this is what Vortex is all about. You know, from a very simple, sample of blood, a 10 milliliter tube of blood, you can detect and isolate those cancer cells. This is the instrument you can see here. You basically put, your tube of blood into a cartridge. You insert the cartridge into the instrument, and almost 3 hours after, then you can know whether you have cancer circulating cells. And this technology is very easy to use, entirely automated, and is able to detect a wide range of cancer. And the important piece is that the purity is very high. So therefore, usually not only other technologies, they also detect those kind of cells, but they have also many other cells, such as white blood cells or red blood cells. And here, with this technology, which is quite unique, you have the ability to have a very high level of purity and efficiency as well. And those two criteria, efficiency and purity, constitute best in class. Okay, so in terms of Newsflow, what is coming up? We continue to work with UCLA and Stanford to work on a number of indications, lung cancer, breast cancer. We have recently sold our first instrument, which is obviously a significant milestone for the company. We are building up inventory now in order to place this instrument into various key centers in the US. And ultimately, we will be looking at partnering the company with a big player in order to propel the company into the next stage. Right, now a few words about another company, Glycotest. Glycotest, it's a liver diagnostic test. And here we are talking about hepatitis B, hepatitis C, non-viral hepatitis as well, because we know that the incidence of hepatitis is increasing because of obesity and metabolic diseases as well. So we are targeting a huge population at risk of liver cancer. This technology is enabling the physician to detect at an early stage HCC. HCC means hepatocellular carcinoma, so liver cancer. And we know that hepatocellular carcinoma is the 5th largest cause of death in the US, and by 2020 will be the first cause of early death by cancer. So very important technology. So how does that work? So we are able to detect through an immunoassay test the level of fucose. Fucose, it's a simple sugar that is attached on proteins. And if you have a high level of fucose, you have a high risk of developing a liver cancer or a fibrosis or a cirrhosis, which will lead to a liver cancer down the road. So this is exactly what this technology is all about. We have already some significant good data, 2 trials that reported very positive, and we are in another validation phase with another clinical trial ongoing. And once we have done all of this, this technology will be put on the marketplace and will be certainly a revolutionary diagnostic for liver cancer. Obviously, in this field, we've been able to assemble a number of important patents all over the world. We are closing, hopefully by year end or beginning of next year, Series A for Glycotest. We will be opening up what we call a lab in the US to perform this service. And we are thinking about selling our first HCC panel, which means hepatocellular carcinoma panel, in the US mid next year. We also will be looking at getting a reimbursement for this panel. So that's Glycotest. Now let's move to another field, which is artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, this is what we have, we call Wanda. And Wanda, it's a company based on the West Coast in the US, San Francisco. And this is a company, and you can see here on this diagram how does that work. We call that a machine learning engine. So it is a clinical decision support tool aiming at reducing the rehospitalization rate of patients with a number of very chronic diseases, such as chronic heart failure, COPD, diabetes, eventually cancer. Because if you are discharged from a hospital within the first 10 days in the US, and you have to come back to the hospital, the healthcare provider has to pay a penalty. And the penalty is around $13,000 per patient. So obviously, with this technology, you're able to save costs and to provide a better quality of life for the patients. I'll tell you how does that work. So the patient is here. So you have a number of monitoring devices onto the patient here. That includes also what we called the electronic health records. The information is sent wirelessly to our engine. And the engine consists of algorithm, a patented algorithm. So the information is processed and sent back to the caregiver, the physician or the nurse. And in return, we call the patient and we tell him or her, OK, you're fine, you can stay at home, or not, then you have to be back to the hospital. Right, so we have started to work with a number of home health agencies with this system, what we called in here. There are many in the US. We want also to implement this into hospital and accountable care organization, major healthcare providers in the US. And we have started to work with HRS, a health research solution based in the state of Chicago. And all the patients in the state of Illinois will be enrolled into this technology through HRS. And we hope to replicate that down the road in other states. So we think that by end of Q1 next year, over 1,000 patients will be enrolled into HRS. We get some funding for that, about $35, $40 per patient. And which is, of course, quite good because that we generate revenues. But at the same time, we get validation of the technology. And the company is in a process to work on a Series A financing as well. OK, another company, Respiratory Diseases, now ProAxis in Belfast, spin out of the Queen's University. And this is about respiratory. So you see this is the R&D test, the immunoassay test. I will explain to you in a sec. And this is the NIT stick. So what does that mean? That means that this technology enables the physician to detect at an early stage, 3 to 4 weeks ahead of time, whether a patient has a sign of superinfection or infection in their lung. Because obviously, chronic patients with serious respiratory diseases, they take too many antibiotics. And this is a good way to avoid that by providing to the physician an information ahead of time. So, and this is use what we call the neutrophil elastase. This is the technology, the immunoassay test that is used into this technology. We estimate the revenues to be over the 200 million pounds at peak sales. We have worked with, we're starting to work with Diagnostics, which is a UK and Irish distributor for the R&D platform. We have been able to partner with National Jewish Health, which is the largest hospital in the US covering respiratory diseases. So we are very proud of that. And they will incorporate our technology into their clinical trials. And down the road, we will launch this little NIT stick with a pharmaceutical partner. The nitstick, you know, this little piece, you know, I mean, the patient put the sputum on it, and then it does, we have a readout system, and it does say whether you have infection or not, basically. Voilà. Final company, PDS, it's a vaccine company in cancer. And this company, it's an immunotherapy platform which is more potent and safer compared to any other companies in the sector, using Versamune. Versamune, it's a platform of nanoparticles, lipids, and they are able to detect at also at a fairly early stage cancer. So this is a huge opportunity for the company, excellent safety profile. The company is now initiating a number of clinical trials, phase 2B in the US, in partnership with MD Anderson, for instance, in partnership with the National Cancer Institute. And the company has just recently signed off a deal with Merck in the US, with Keytruda. Keytruda, that's the leading flagship product for Merck in oncology. So this company has a great deal of potential, as I will show you in a sec. Obviously, as we are getting closer to commercialization, the company is having more visibility externally, and this is the manifestation of a number of headlines in the press. This is an interesting slide because it does show the link between the delivery of milestones and the shape of the share price, of the curve of the share price. As you could see from here, we have started to deliver the milestones during the second part of the year, 2017, but much more will come, and therefore we do expect to have a significant share price increase over the next few months. All right, this slide just shows you the peak sales of each of those companies at 5+ years of commercialization. And you could see it's all in the range of 400 million pounds, which is very significant. PDS Biotech is much higher, a few billion pounds. However, the development risks are greater as well. So all in all, for next year, we will continue to execute on delivering the milestones that we have promised to the streets. And I have to say that this is, among all the companies in the sector, one of the very few companies with such a de-risk portfolio, because all these companies are close to commercialize or have already started the commercialization process, and we are not in research anymore. At the same time, having a market cap of around 50 million pounds, we are actively pursuing M&A activities, obviously, in order to reach a greater critical mass and have access to additional investors. And I think that's it.
Super, thank you very much, Francois. Do you have any questions, please? A gentleman here, please, Peter.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for that, Francois. I'm fascinated from the point of view of strategy. You have 5, it seems, businesses, and the problems they're dealing with are not necessarily geographically. There are problems that go on, you know, here, there, and everywhere, for want of the right words. And you have aims, as you put up there, in terms of what they could reach in terms of peak sales. Also, to build sales pipelines, it takes people and time and investment and relationships and regulators and things like that. How on earth do you decide, you know, 3 monthly, 6 monthly, 12 monthly, where to allocate your sales resources to make, you know, to make progress along some of these lines? Because, and would you call your investors patient investors, or, pardon the pun, or you know, it seems like in a way it's a slow capital business, but then obviously there's milestones to be reached.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, you know, if I look at the potential of each company, you know, could outstrip easily in terms of market potential and market cap the value of our whole company, clearly. To answer your question, well, we are an IP commercialization, intellectual property commercialization business. That means that we are a bridge between early stage research and late stage development commercialization. At this point in time, we have to have stronger muscles, obviously, and that comes from big companies. And so this is what we are doing. I mean, we will be looking for partnering, clearly, because we can't do it on our own. Now, to come back to your question about patience of investors, well, we are very fortunate to have Neil Woodford, you know, with us, and Invesco as well. They are very patient, but obviously we need to deliver, and this is what we are doing now. And that's really fantastic. At the same time, you know, we want to have retail investors such as you into the mix. But I think to have, you know, Neil Woodford, Invesco Perpetual, Geo Hambro as our main investor, as our backbone in terms of it's quite fantastic. It's quite a privilege, to be frank.
So you're looking for partnerships to build the sales or accelerate the sales funnels. And then would you see yourself as managing these businesses or exiting?
Yeah, that's a good question. For some companies, we will be selling them, you know, and other companies, we will be probably remain as a minority investor and be diluted, you know, depending on the case. There is no magic solution. It all depends on the marketplace. But clearly, I mean, all those companies are really developing and commercializing really game-changing technology. So it's not a generic business, and this is really, and as I tried to show you earlier, initially when I joined the company, we had about 20 assets, you know, and then you had to make a choice, basically. Yeah? And we were not that wrong because I made a choice of 6 companies, only one we had to stop because the data were not good enough. But out of the 6, so 5 will be on the marketplace, which is quite successful, you know.
Can I clarify one thing with you, Francois? Sure. Of the 5 companies in the portfolio, the ownership that you have of them, do you own them outright, or what stakes do you have?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. We are majority shareholders in 4 out of 5. So the cancer vaccine, we have a minority shareholding, 15%, but all the other ones, we are a majority shareholder.
Because you mentioned again at the start about getting the right CEOs in place.
Yes.
So you're actively assisting the management. You are leading the businesses.
Yeah, I am the chairman of all those 4 companies, but obviously, you know, they are based in the US, in San Francisco, so I'm not on their shoulders every day. Yeah? So they are fully empowered, and we supervise what they are doing through board meetings and regular contact, of course, but it's not a micromanagement. It's not the point, because those guys are very senior, you know. I mean, Vortex, the cancer circulating cell company, the guy used to be a director at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, used to be the head of worldwide diagnostics for Novartis. So this is my philosophy, you know, hire heavyweight CEOs, put them in place, and leave them to manage the business. And of course, there is mechanism to supervise. But that was quite a successful, I think, business model so far.
And again, the number of companies in the portfolio, you brought it down from 20 plus to 6, then 5. Is there a number that you think is right for you?
Well, with the market cap of £50 million, I don't think that we can go any more further. And with such a lean and mean management team, we need to be modest and do well what we have, execute well, and then go to the next step, which means, you know, once the time will be right, refill the portfolio, the pipeline, and go to the next level. But we need to stay nimble.
And on that, forgive me to just ask a couple more questions.
Oh,
on
sure.
the pipeline, do you have the affiliations to the universities? How do you secure
yes,
the early
yes, that's
stage,
a good question. Most of them are coming from UCLA, Stanford, West Coast of the US, Glycotes, East Coast, Drexel University. Yeah, mainly the US, yes.
Do you have an exclusivity on
no,
those arrangements?
No, and it does not. There is no legal arrangement. It's through our network, through the network of my chairman as well. So it's network driven.
Okay. Was there a question here, please? Thank you.
Yes. All of your investments are companies that are probably at the stage where they're burning cash.
Yes.
So a big decision you have is when they need some more cash is do you maintain your stake as a percentage or do you allow yourself to be diluted? And how easy is it going to be for them to raise the cash if you don't come up with it?
Yeah, I mean, those 4 companies are raising money now as we speak. Some of them will be closing their Series A, hopefully before year end. One company, Glycotest. The other one, it will be in 2018. We will be diluted and slowly exit. You know, this is the nature of the business. Yeah, or we'll be looking for a trade sale, you know. But yes, I mean, I raised altogether about close to 30 million pounds in less than 3 years.
So you're happy to take the dilution?
Yeah, because this is the way the business model is, you know, and we can return, you know, dividend cash to our main investors. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Gentlemen here, yeah. Please take the mic. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. About 10 years ago, the statistics shows 1 in 3 of us will get cancer, and recent surveys shows 1 in 2 of us will get cancer at some point in time. So therefore, the trend is to invent some early detection systems, and I have seen some other companies are also working on this. For example, your Vortex. Do you have the IPR already registered, or?
Sorry, the
Vortex.
Yes.
You have the intellectual property right for that?
Oh yes, of course, yes, certainly. And we have FDA Class 1, which is the first step of the approval for the diagnostics for the instrument. Yes, we have a full patent all over the world, basically, US, Europe, Asia.
And who are your competitors?
Basically, there is one company called Angle with Parsotics based in the UK, which is in the same sector. However, we do have better data in some of this technology in terms of capture efficiency and purity. We have better data. We have about 18 publications. We have 45 posters, presentations done around the world the past few years. It's a very impressive technology for Vortex, extremely impressive. It's a microfluidics, so you know we isolate cancer cells through micro vortices. You see, it's very impressive.
I think Angle also used some similar technology. The size of the cancer cell.
Yeah, you detect cancer or you isolate those cancer cells based on deformability and size. This is the way.
That's what Angle does.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of times the strength of the institutional investors, and at the start, kind of doing a quick adding up of the percentages, that shows that there's a lot held by longer-term institutional investors. Have management got much? What's the management holding in the company?
Management is incentivized through stock options. And properly, yes. And management in our subsidiaries are incentivized according to their company, which is great as well, through stock options as well.
Okay. Any other questions? We're about out of time. Gentleman at the back, please, Pete.
When are you expecting meaningful revenues from these companies?
Well, it's a good question. To expect a large revenues, then you need to have a partner, basically, more muscles on the commercial side. This is not necessarily the intent, okay? So at the point where we have enough revenues in the order of magnitude of 5 to 10 million pounds, probably we need to have at this point in time a large partner, a strong partner to go to the next level, to commercialize. We are as a group, planning to generate next year around in the order of magnitude of £5 million. It's fairly modest, but again, the goal is not like a Glaxo welcome.
Okay. Francois, thank you very much indeed.
You're
welcome.
Thank you.